Ropecasters are super useful, but to make them effective, you need to know how to stop this.
We'll work on that. Hold take.
Sometimes ropes just won't attach to machines or anchor in the ground like they're supposed to. I'll show you how to fix that. Plus, we'll cover a bunch of other Ropecaster mechanics, the best Ropecasters and how to coil them, and even tips and tricks for canister harpoons and elemental ropes. The primary use for a Ropecaster is immobilizing machines by tying them down with binding ropes. You might want to rope down machines to give yourself an opportunity to reset from a chaotic fight, make it easier to remove a particular component, get a group of machines under control so you can deal with one at a time, or set up a devastating combo. For example, by applying the brittle state and following up with a sharp shot focus shot to a weak point. The tie down state builds up just like elemental states. You need to apply enough ropes to fill up the icon, and then the machine will become immobilized. Machines have tie-down thresholds ranging anywhere from 75 to 600, depending on their size, and these thresholds are the same at all difficulty levels. Once you get a machine tied down, it will remain immobilized for a maximum of 90 seconds. Also, just like elemental states, the white outline around the icon will tick down to show you how much time is left. Now, it's a maximum of 90 seconds because if you deal damage, the tie-down state will degrade, shortening the total amount of time the machine is immobilized. So if you want to keep them immobilized, you can't deal too much damage. But you can apply elemental states without setting them free by making sure to hit an armor plate with your elemental ammo. Armor plates reduce impact damage, but not elemental buildup. So this minimizes the tie-down degradation and lets you, for example, freeze a machine very easily. This is actually one of the 8 hidden mechanics I cover in my secret combat mechanics video. I'll link that down below in case you want to check it out. You should also know that you can't refresh the tie-down state by adding more ropes. Once a machine has entered the tie-down state, just like entering an elemental state, adding more ropes won't have any effect. You'll also notice that a partial tie down before you get enough ropes on to fill up the icon will partially restrain a machine, but they can break free if they stretch the ropes too far or perform certain movement animations. You also won't be able to get your ropes to attach to machines while they're in the middle of certain animations, usually big ones that have a lot of movement involved. Anyway, many of us are familiar with these fundamental mechanics from Zero Dawn, but Ropecasters do work a little differently in Forbidden West. The key difference is that tap firing isn't very effective anymore. In Forbidden West, a tap-fired rope will not attach if it hits an armor plate. It will attach if you can manage to hit an unarmored area, but as you know, machines are covered in a lot of armor and trying to hit an unarmored area isn't really practical. If you can get a machine corroding with acid, you can tap fire to attach ropes to armor plates, but building up the corroding state takes time, and the tie-down also won't last as long because the corroding state's damage over time degrades the tie-down a bit. So we need to be able to attach ropes to armor plates anytime we want, and you can do that by making sure to fully draw your shot. Now, it's important to note that fully drawing doesn't mean going all the way to an overdraw. Overdrawing, indicated by the halo closing in and forming a circle in the center of the reticle, will certainly work too. Most Ropecasters, in fact most weapons in general, can be overdrawn once upgraded enough to unlock their overdraw perk. And on Ropecasters, it will actually increase the amount of tie-down power applied with the rope by 15%. But overdrawing is not necessary to attach ropes to armor plates. You only need to fully draw. So basically, hold for a moment until you can see the halo. As long as you can see the halo, even if it hasn't closed yet, you can let the shot fly and your rope will attach to any part of the machine. The key thing is that you basically never want to tap fire a Ropecaster. Always hold down to draw the shot at least a little bit or go for the overdraw. A less common issue with attaching ropes, but still worth noting, is that ropes attached to armor plates will be detached if the armor plate gets torn off. This is rarely a problem, but it can come up once in a while. Now, getting the rope to attach at the machine end is only half the story. We also need it to anchor in the ground, and this can be problematic as well. If you pay careful attention, you'll notice that sometimes when your rope doesn't work, it does actually attach to the machine. In fact, you can literally see the harpoon stuck in and the rope flailing around uselessly. So you got it on the machine, but the problem is the other end didn't anchor into the ground. Why not? Well, water seems to be the culprit. Standing in or even near water can, for some reason, prevent ropes from anchoring in the ground. You don't even need to be very close. Sometimes you can be up on a bank a few meters away and encounter this issue. Crouching, sliding, or anything that brings the Ropecaster closer to the ground exacerbates the issue. Even dodging at the wrong moment so that the anchor is trying to set while the Ropecaster is closer to the ground in the middle of Aloy's roll can be problematic. Why exactly areas in and around water cause issues, I don't really know, but it's clear water is a problem, and having the Ropecaster closer to the ground makes it worse. It does appear to have something to do with the interface of water and land. You can find lots of areas on beaches or in swamps where the ground will actually appear to absorb ammo. Other things like rocks, trees, tree stumps, or other objects on the ground like machine parts can also prevent the anchor from setting, even when you're not near water, but running into that situation is much less common. So overall, I think ropes not anchoring into the ground is basically a bug, and hopefully it can be fixed at some point. But right now, let's focus on what you can do to make sure your ropes work. One way I found to remedy the issue around water is to make sure the Ropecaster is high enough above the ground when the anchor tries to set. Avoiding crouching or sliding will help, but that eliminates using one of the best tricks with Ropecasters. See, sliding allows us to trigger the hidden quick draw mechanic, which allows us to draw a Ropecaster much faster. Very useful since Ropecasters draw really slowly by default. If you want all the details on quick draw, you can check out that secret combat mechanics video I mentioned earlier. But what you need to know right now is that sliding and then drawing our Ropecaster while in the slide offers a way to draw the Ropecaster much more quickly. So we're definitely going to want to do that. However, having the Ropecaster closer to the ground will cause us to run into the anchoring issue more often. So to combat this, we can jump out of the slide immediately after firing the Ropecaster. The additional clearance from jumping will allow the anchor to set like it's supposed to. Now, I'm not recommending you jump every time you use a Ropecaster near water. Mainly, I'm just trying to illustrate the mechanics here so you understand what's going on when those ropes don't work. I certainly don't always jump, even though I slide for a lot of my Ropecaster shots. My typical method for firing binding ropes is to simply slide to quick draw a fully overdrawn shot and then release the shot while I'm still sliding. Sometimes I do run into the anchor issue, but I know what's going on, so I can either use the jump method, stand up so I get more clearance, or move away from whatever water's causing the issue. Another great way to fire binding ropes is to fire one normally, followed immediately by a shot with the penetrating rope weapon technique. This is the only weapon technique available for Ropecasters, and it essentially allows you to do the zero dawn tap fire, just now at the expense of some weapon stamina. Penetrating rope will instantly attach a binding rope anywhere on a machine, even on armor plates. So for example, you can slide to quick draw overdraw your first rope, and then immediately do a penetrating rope to get 2 ropes on fast. Just remember the binding power of penetrating rope is always the same, and it isn't as strong as the best regular ropes. It's also worth noting that penetrating rope doesn't cost any ammo. This means you can use penetrating rope even when you're out of ammo, plus you'll get a regular binding rope regardless of which ammo type you have equipped. So you can even fire binding ropes from elemental Ropecasters that don't have them as an ammo type. Alright, so that's how to use binding ropes properly. Now let's talk about elemental canisters. There's no doubt that these are far less useful than regular binding ropes, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but let me give you a quick overview. Canister harpoons function the same way as elemental canisters on machines, but you can stick them wherever you want. Sticking them directly to a machine is the obvious approach, but it's actually really hard to hit them because they flop around like crazy. It's better to use canister harpoons like traps, setting them up on the ground or even on the side of a tree. However, unlike traps, they need to be hit with a corresponding elemental ammo to trigger. The explosion of a canister can trigger any type of trap, but the explosion of a trap won't trigger any elemental canisters. Perhaps most disappointingly, elemental canisters won't even trigger each other. They'll also only stay attached for 30 seconds if you tap fire and 60 if you overdraw. Once the time limit is reached, they'll detach and become a canister you can pick up for resources. Hopefully someday the elemental canisters get updated to trigger each other like traps. They'd be much more useful that way. But in the meantime, it's moderately effective to use the triple notch or burst fire weapon techniques to trigger multiple canisters at once. Now, the new explosive canisters in the Burning Shores DLC are much more interesting. These do trigger each other and can be triggered with any arrow, bomb, or other ammo type. They'll also be triggered by explosions from traps, though I haven't been able to get a vertical shock trap to trigger them. So you can set a bunch of explosive canisters up as cheap traps, lure a machine into them, and then trigger them. Or if you want to make them go off automatically, you can use one regular trap as the trigger. A spike trap will also work. It's also totally viable to attach explosive canisters canisters directly to machines, but it's still tough to nail them with an arrow while they're flopping around, so a blast sling bomb works well if you're having trouble. However, sometimes you don't even need to trigger them. Most machine attacks that deal area of effect damage will trigger them for you, so you can actually kill machines without a single arrow by loading them up with explosive canisters and waiting for their own attacks to trigger them. For example, a Slaughter Spine's Plasma Roar or a Tremor Tusk's Shock Stomps. In fact, you can actually get free kills with 0 ammo this way if you trigger the Power Shots Valor Surge first. Not only does Power Shots let us use ammo for free, but it also gives the canisters a really nice damage boost, making this tactic even more powerful. And it's pretty fun to watch machines blow themselves up. Of course, you can also stack the Power Shots boosted explosive canisters with other damage boosts like Stealth, the Mounted Archer skill, and Overdraw potions for even more damage. Shout out to my friend Mr. Fancy Pants for sharing these fun tactics with us. That's not the only wacky thing you can do with explosive canisters though. As usual, UK shared some very interesting shenanigans over on the Horizon Maniacs channel, which you should definitely check out by the way. I'll link it below. You can attach a bunch of canisters to your mount or overridden machine and then ride or send it into battle to deliver an explosive surprise. You can also attach canisters to wildlife, which is a little mortifying, and the skiff in the Burning Shores, which is actually pretty fun because Aloy is really safe in the skiff and it can knock down machines really easily. Regardless of the vehicle, the canisters do still need to be triggered, so if the machine doesn't do it for you, you can use an arrow or bomb. It's also interesting to note you can still trigger explosive canisters after they've detached from the Harpoon, but they act a bit strange, sometimes causing explosions without actually blowing up, and also dealing less damage. You can stack up to 18, and of course you can throw in some traps and spike traps to cook up a seriously spicy explosion. So spicy in fact that it can crash the game, but let's save that for the end of the video. The last type of Ropecaster ammo are elemental ropes, and we currently only have plasma and shock ropes. Unfortunately, there's really not much you can do with elemental ropes. They do build up the elemental state over time, but the buildup is so slow that it's really not very effective. There is an elemental pool around the anchor, so if you can manage to get the anchors close to or under a machine, they can help build up the elemental state faster. But if you're looking to apply an elemental state while a machine is tied down, you can use the armor plate trick we covered earlier, so there's really no benefit to an elemental rope. They do apply some tie down in addition to their elemental effects, but they're much weaker than regular ropes in this regard. The best I can say for elemental ropes is that they can serve as an extra binding rope if you run out of regular ones in a pinch. Alright, let's quickly run through all the best Ropecasters you can pick up at different points in the game. The first one you can get is the green Ropecaster in Barren Light, but I don't recommend it. Its binding ropes are really weak, and even when fully upgraded, it doesn't get an Overdraw perk to help make them stronger. Plus, it only has one coil slot. If you do want to start playing with a Ropecaster early on, then head to Scalding Spear to pick up the anchor, or Salt Bite to get the Eventide. These are roughly equivalent, so I would decide based on how easily you think you can get the upgrade resources needed to level one of them up. The anchor requires Bellowback, Stalker, and Shell Snapper components, while the Eventide needs Burrower, Sunwing, and Elemental Clawstrider components. But the Ropecaster you really want to be gunning for is the Elite, which is for sale in Thornmarsh. The Elite is hands down the best Ropecaster in the base game, and the only one with advanced binding ropes, which are more than 2.5 times stronger than any of the blue Ropecasters. As a purple rarity weapon, it also gets 3 coil slots, which you'll want to load up with either reload speed or draw speed coils. These are the 2 types of coils you should be using on any Ropecaster you're planning to use for tie down. If you find yourself mostly using a Ropecaster in the standing position, then you want to prioritize draw speed coils. If you've mastered leveraging quick draw, then you'll want to swap in at least 1 or 2 reload speed coils, and maybe even go full reload speed. Now, in the Burning Shores DLC, you'll be able to pick up the only legendary Ropecaster in the game, the Tie That Binds. This thing is crazy strong, even compared to the Elite, and it's the first weapon I recommend people pick up in the Burning Shores. I have a video where we review all the new Burning Shores weapons if you want to check them out. The Tie That Binds has even stronger advanced binding ropes, and as a legendary has an incredible set of perks that make it super fast to fire, and 5 coil slots we can use to enhance it further. You'll definitely want to consider putting the new Elite Overdraw coil on there since it boosts both reload and draw speed. You'll only be able to get 1 copy of each Elite coil per playthrough though, so if you want more, you can either do multiple New Game Plus playthroughs, or you can use the Arena Duplication glitch, which you can learn about in this video right here. If you don't have any more Elite Overdraw, then I'd go ahead and fill in the remaining slots with draw speed or reload speed coils, just like we did on the Elite. You might also consider using some coils to boost the explosive canisters, which are exclusive to the Tie That Binds. 12% explosive coils are relatively easy to get because they're actually one of the few you can farm from machines, but 15% Overdraw coils will boost explosive damage a bit more. Unfortunately, even though most Ropecasters have an Overdraw perk, Overdraw coils won't boost the binding power of regular ropes, so they'll only help the explosive canisters. If you want to play around with elemental canister harpoons, the Canister Ropecaster is for sale at the Plainsong Hunting Grounds, the Bulwark, and Cliffwatch. And the Elite Canister Ropecaster is a reward from the Souvenir side quest, which you can pick up from the Hunter Merchant Jomar in Legacy's Landfall. Since you'll want to be using the elemental harpoons like traps, I recommend boosting them with elemental coils. The new Elite versions from the Burning Shores are particularly nice for this, but regular ones work great too. I hope this video has helped you understand how to use Ropecasters more effectively, and cleared up all the weirdness with ropes not attaching consistently. I'll have links below for all the other videos I mentioned, and I'll also link all my other weapon masterclass videos. Shredder gauntlets are another misunderstood and underutilized weapon, so if you want to check that one out, I'll throw it up here. My friends Mr. Fancy Pants, Paris, Twinge, Phosphorus, and Arg all contributed their knowledge and suggestions to this video to make sure we got all the important stuff in here for you guys. Shout out to them for being awesome. If you want to come hang out with us, the link to my Discord server is always down in the description. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.